I made a video script a little bit ago about my E3 predictions. That video was all about what I thought would happen at the Nintendo E3 event, and what I thought we would most likely be in for. I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm probably pretty darn wrong, but hey, at least I made something, right? I didn't just skip making videos for a week to go make Eggo waffles, so I'm pretty much a big deal now. But in this video, I won't be telling you what I think will happen, I'll be telling you what I want to happen. And remember, this is not my opinion. These are the games that would objectively be the most exciting to get announced. And you aren't allowed to argue because you'd be objectively wrong. Hello all 296 of you, I'm Redkwan, and these are my E3 hopes and dreams. Paper Mario. I'm not usually a fan of turn-based RPGs because, why would you be? But Paper Mario is a huge exception. Normally, turn-based RPGs are just the same basic strategy again and again. Walk around, fight somebody, walk around, fight somebody. Even some of the best games like that are really bland. Not to anger Pokemon fans because there are a lot of them, but Pokemon is basically just choosing the best move against somebody and using that. That isn't very fun. These games become much more about grinding to get way better than your opponent than actual strategy. But not Paper Mario. Paper Mario's battling is way more in-depth because it takes some actual input to do well, and because it's more about strategy because leveling up isn't very easy unless you progress the game. And not only that, but there are other things besides battling. There are some puzzles, although they are simpler than, say, Zelda's. There's a lot of exploring and running around, and there's a really fun story to go along with it. I know that the newer games have strayed away from the older style, but it was so good, and it would be awesome if a new one came out that went back to the good old days. You know what game has some of the best combat in any game ever? The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. You know what game has one of the coolest premises ever? Shadow of the Colossus. I give you Wind Waker of the Colossus. There are probably a couple legal issues there. Would something like that ever happen? No, of course it wouldn't. Even if they did it differently enough to not go into rip-off territory, there's almost a 0% chance that Nintendo would ever do anything like that. Then, you might say, why do you even bring it up, Redkwan? Because this is a video about games I would wish to come to the Switch. You aren't supposed to be watching this for realistic predictions, I already did that last week! But Shadow of the Colossus does have a super cool premise, you can't deny it. You go off alone exploring this world, and you encounter huge, eerie monsters. That's pretty cool. And imagine if there was a Wind Waker version where Link sails the seas to find these giant monsters. Okay, I think we've talked about Wind Waker of the Colossus enough, considering that it would absolutely never happen. Make it happen. My next out there game I want to see is a new F-Zero game. I know there's been talk of a Star Fox racing game, which might mean no F-Zero, but I'm going to put it on here anyway just because. To be honest, I haven't actually ever played an F-Zero game, which might mean I'm not qualified to want one, but they look really fun. They're a different type of game than Mario Kart, which I think would allow it to still do pretty well, and the fast-paced gameplay would be something the Switch audience would be all over, I feel like. And it has a sort of story mode, I believe, which would be interesting for that kind of game. I think it would be super exciting if F-Zero comes back faster and better than ever. So Mario & Rabbids was a pretty big success, I would say, as a big crossover between Nintendo and Ubisoft, but Nintendo could theoretically have a crossover between their own characters too. And what Nintendo characters would make a great crossover? To be perfectly honest, not too many. But Metroid and Star Fox both take place in space. They're like space buddies. That's what I'm basing this all on. But it might actually end up being a pretty fun game. Star Fox hasn't had all that many huge games, maybe none. But I feel like it's one of those games that once it breaks out of its old and exhausted formula, it could become something amazing. It just has potential. And Metroid Prime 4 is coming for Metroid, but it's been a really long time and who's complaining about more? I'm imagining a game where there's some villain, the Star Fox crew and Samus both come to take him out, and then they team up and agree to fight it, and are immediately tossed off onto some planet. So for most of the game you take turns doing Star Foxy stuff and Metroid-y stuff, back and forth. But in the end they would come together. Don't ask me about gameplay because let's remember, I came up with this because I was thinking about some kid's movie about dogs in space, but I think it could actually be kind of fun. And my last hope and dream for E3 is another Donkey Kong game. I know we got that port of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, but that was a port of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I've already played it. But it was such a good game that I would be super excited if they made another one. It's honestly one of my favorite games, it's that good. Or if you didn't like it, I have that bad a taste. Another 3D game would also be really cool. If they made it less of a collecting stuff game and more like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze controls but in 3D. Just something with Donkey Kong, literally anything. The Kong can do no wrong. Well, what do you want to see from Nintendo's E3? Do you think the Kong can do a lot of wrong? Do you think my ideas, hopes, and dreams are all a pile of garbage that doesn't deserve to exist, and that I also don't deserve to exist? Because that's a little harsh. All I did was make a bad video about my dumb E3 wishes. I didn't crash your 6th birthday party or anything. Unless you're Jimmy. Or Craig. Or Donald. Or Barry. Or Karthik Weastenarth. Anyways, I'm Redkwan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all later. Goodbye.